Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Ruben Amorim is slammed by two former Manchester United players. Boring and not happy with the inverted fullbacks. We'll be talking about that. Also, Ruben Amorim demanding his players train after the game last night at Old Trafford. Even Rasmus Højlund involved in that. Is that the final straw for Amorim? And is it a good thing that he's getting players out because he's frustrated training straight after a game? And does that show you the concerns and issues that are going on at Manchester United? Let's get into it. Quick video here this afternoon. We're live again at 8 o'clock and I'm going to do something I've never really done before. I want you to get in the comments and give your thoughts around these things. And I'm not going to delve too much into it so we can pick up on it live at 8 o'clock. But what I will say is that the reports coming out, well, they're not the reports, it came off the official Manchester United social media page that Ruben Amorim had the players yesterday after the game doing a full training session rather than a warm down. Players involved in this was Rasmus Højlund, who played a full 90 minutes, and the post read working for the badge. And some of the United squad completed a full training session at Old Trafford following the full-time whistle on Friday. I think this is interesting. We can certainly talk about that, but also secondary to that, Paul Scholes in a now deleted social media post put out last night, inverted wingbacks, ... You saw it at Old Trafford first. Obviously, Scholes, he might have had a few Friday night, but wasn't happy with it. And sometimes, you know, you tell the truth when you've had a few or on a Friday night. And then Roy Keane following it up with, he brings in new players and you think he's going to play Dorgu at left wing back and he puts him at right wing back. Is that fair on players? Goes on to say it's shocking, really, really poor. No shot on target at half time, 2 on target against Crystal Palace. They're actually boring now. You feel like going into the dressing room and reminding them what the game's about. There's a goal at the end and you need to get the ball in it to score. It's as if they're not even aware of it. Leicester haven't been that great, but they've done okay. United aren't even doing the basics right. Sloppy, trying to beat people from 25 yards from their own goal. People not staying with their runners. It's like an echo chamber, isn't it? I mean, look, we're a fantastic community. We've been talking together for years. Welcome if you're new. But this is something that you and I have been talking about. And look, Roy Keane's played the game. He's played the game. And whilst I think some ex-players have agendas and get a lot wrong, you can't argue with Roy Keane when he watches a game of football and says they're not doing the basics, they're not picking up the runners, they're taking people on, they're not moving the ball quick enough. I mean, these are all things we've said, but Roy Keane would know that, having played in the midfield at the highest level. He can see the things that we're seeing as well, and fair play for him for calling it out. Paul Scholes having a pop about inverted wingers. All right, he's deleted it, but we've seen it now. What are your thoughts on that? Because I'm not going to talk about either of them until 8 o'clock. That'll be an 8 o'clock exclusive reaction, what I think about Scholes saying that and Roy Keane saying that. But I think Ruben Amorim getting players training, doing a full training session after a Friday night game that didn't finish till 10 o'clock is quite interesting and is a sign of the sheer issues, the size of the issues that he's facing. I think another question I would throw at you is, what would you do? Like, we're all aware of the results. They're rubbish. The performances, even when the results are good, are rubbish. We beat Fulham. It was a rubbish performance. We beat Leicester. It was a rubbish performance. Sandwiched in between that, we got beat by Palace. It was a rubbish performance. Amorim needs his own players. We all know that. He's not got any, apart from Dorgu. He's got 4 months now where he needs to win the Europa League or the FA Cup to help himself survive. Financially, we'll be screwed in the summer if not. So what is he supposed to do? 2 months in, these players are not responding. Like, they're not doing the basics. Roy Keane is right. They're not doing the basics. So what do you do in that situation? Because piling it on the manager, to me, is irrational. Like, he has done quite a lot at this club and he spoke honestly about, like, the issues that he's facing. He's removed certain players. You know, bloody Anthony's gone and scored for Betis today and people will be going, we shouldn't have let him go. I just have to repeat this. If Rashford scores for Villa, it doesn't mean we were wrong for letting them go. What did those players do in a Manchester United shirt? Sweet FA. They were shit. If they go off and do it for Betis and Villa, who does that reflect on? It doesn't reflect on Amorim. It reflects on them. Oh, you can go and do it for Betis, you can go and do it for Villa, but you can't do it for Man United. That reflects on them. Weak players who have to go to lesser clubs to do it. And respect to Villa, I know they're better than us at the moment. But I think when I hear Amorim training players after a full match on a Friday night, I think that reeks of desperation. But desperate times call for desperate measures. We are in a desperate situation. The football club has lost its identity. And if I'm a manager watching that last night, do I want to wait until tomorrow or Sunday for a training session? Or do I want to get some of them out on the bloody training pitch now? Because I can't believe that Ruben Amorim spends the week not teaching them to play one-touch passing or move the ball quickly. I can't believe he spends the week telling Onana when he gets the ball to just boot it aimlessly 50 yards up front. I can't believe he's telling Maguire and Yoro and Mazraoui to hit diagonals to Delo, who won't do anything with it. I can't believe these things are being taught, so they must just be behavioural from the players on the pitch. So what is he supposed to do? It's one of the number one questions. I was out this morning watching a football match, and I met someone who was a Wolves fan, and they were saying, is Amorim heading towards the sack? And what can change at Manchester United? And I said, what can he do? What can the manager do with those players? All he can do is try and break through this low IQ or inability to do the basics and try and get them to do the basics. I watched the game this morning, actually. Basically, one of the teams, it ended up 2-2. And I think the team that got the equaliser at the end was quite happy with the result. You watch that game, which you can't because it wasn't recorded, but I watched it. And one team should have won 4 or 5-1. And they were wasteful in the final third. They moved the ball really well. They received the ball, the press comes, they play the pass, and then they move into the space. And it was just simply well-coached side with players that can do it. The opposition misplaced passes all the time. The goals that they scored was, individualistic, I think. But there's no patterns of play there. Now, that does come down to coaching. Obviously, it comes down to coaching, but it also comes down to technical ability to do it. And I'm looking at Man United at the moment, and Amorim is obviously desperately trying to get through to these players. If he wants to be training them after a bloody FA Cup night match, he is desperate to implement. He's obviously taking it personally. This is Ruben Amorim with a hipster style of football a year ago, who is now in the spotlight in the Premier League at Man United, and people are starting to look at him and go, he's not up to it. I don't think he's not up to it. I think he's been dealt a bad card. And I think that he's trying desperately to get these players to do it, but their confidence is low, their ability is low, and it's like getting Stevie Wonder to teaching him how to drive, isn't it? It's difficult. It's really difficult. Is it impossible? And I don't know what else he's supposed to do. And I know that's not the answer, but more and more I find myself looking at Manchester United and going, the solutions aren't necessarily there. Like, this Glazer Ineos ownership doesn't necessarily show me a pathway to success. I can't see it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I can't see it. And I'm looking at Amorim over the next 4 months, because the next step for me with Amorim is bringing more players in and removing more players. But that can't happen for the next 4 months. What he's got to do over the next 4 months is what he's got. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, you can't polish a turd. I don't know how you're going to get it to work. I don't know how you're going to get it to work. So he's obviously very, very unhappy, but is it his fault? Like, people keep talking about changing the formation. It's not the formation. The formation doesn't need to change. He might need to change his approach, but did he not do that against Fulham and Crystal Palace? We hardly created anything. We were just compact, and it was shit. And this is what I mean. These observers from the media who say needs to change his formation, that's not what needs to change. A formation doesn't change the way that the team plays necessarily. It's your systematic approach. And we've already seen a change. When he puts Mazraoui and Delo, that's defensive. We're trying not to concede chances, but it means we won't create much. He's already doing that. We saw it against Palace, hardly any shots. We saw it against Leicester, hardly any shots until we had to go for it. So I think that I understand Amorim's frustration, and it is really bad. But what else is he supposed to do? And I throw that to you. What is he supposed to do? He's clearly at breaking points. He's clearly had enough. If he's getting players to train after they've played a match, then he's clearly had enough. He's clearly not happy. He said it after the game. It was a good result, but a bad performance. But what do you do? What can you do? There are tweaks. As I said this morning, Delo shouldn't be playing at left wing back. I don't think Bruno should be in midfield. but they're tweaks. Does it change the whole side? It's a real challenge, and I'm sort of watching it going, I can't criticise what he's doing with what he's got because it's limited options in what he's trying to do and achieve. But you better be sure that the pressure is ramping up. And I will talk about this on the 8 o'clock show in more depth, but Paul Scholes saying, taking the piss out of inverted fullbacks, and Roy Keane saying it's boring. I mean, this just pumps up the pressure. I would rather they said, I mean, look, Gary Neville's always going to be silent, isn't he, because of Ineos, but I would rather Scholes and Keane added a bit of context, because it feels to me like it might be pushing towards the manager. I would always say to those people, and you, what would you do? If I'm sat here going, I don't know what Amorim can do, I don't know what he can do. Like, we can't go back to a back four and long ball and counter-attacking shit. It's not real. You can't do that. So he's got to stick with what he's doing. But how can he get these players to be better at the basics? How can he get them to be better footballers? And you can't polish a turd. So I think it's difficult. It's really difficult. But you better believe it's a desperate situation. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to tune in at 8 o'clock. I'm also on That's Football for FA Cup football. Birmingham City against Newcastle. Could we get a shock in the cup? Thanks everyone for watching. Get your comments in. Really ready for those. And I'll speak to you in a bit.